I'm enjoying myself right now. My oldest has randomly decided to get into Ninja Turtles.
Oh,
Yeah,
what a win!
I'm super excited. So,
What a win!
yeah, we're going deep into the 2012 animated series.
Okay.
And yeah, I love it. It's fantastic. It's not very often. Like, I had my youngest watching Transformers with me for like a minute, but like this one,
Yeah, I mean that's about what the attention span will hold at that age.
yeah, but this one, she's all in on this Ninja Turtles thing, and I'm like, sweet. Like, how many different versions can I get her into before I before I lose her?
Yeah, got to seize those opportunities when they present themselves, no doubt about it.
Exactly. And I'm like, I can't wait to watch. Like, I just want to watch the '80s movie. Like the real life movie, but the foam
Yes,
suits. They're like, out of all the technology that they've done, like they have not done Ninja Turtles better than that movie in the '80s, in my opinion.
that's true. Well, I think it's because like they just sort of leaned into the limitations of it as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to like all of the CGI versions and stuff really, really feels like they were convinced that if they tweaked just one or two more things, they would look super realistic. And
Yeah.
so instead, you just end up kind of grotesque.
Yeah, they're
Like,
these giant turtle monsters. Like they're not lovable at all.
yeah.
And
I
then
mean,
you
I
just
will say, watching facial expressions take 30 seconds to happen on the
oh
old foam rubber ones,
yeah.
that's still a delight for me.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong
He's
with
starting to smile. He's working on it.
it. It's oh man. Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait. Anyway, so yeah. All right. Let's hit an intro and jump into it. Welcome to the podcast, Blue Collar Scholars. Not long ago, a group of brilliant minds met together at a pub to discuss their unfinished works. They recognized the value of coming together around delicious beverages and having meaningful conversations. That group was known as the Inklings. The Inkle podcast here, we're working to be the second iteration of that group. So, pour yourself a craft beverage, pull up a chair, and join the conversation. All right, you had anything good recently?
Yeah, not something that is new to me by any stretch, but so for Father's Day this past Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
kind of my deal is I go over to my folks' place, I buy some steak and some sides, and I run
Mm-hmm.
the grill for the day.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, so while I was grilling and then eating the meal and everything, celebrating my dad, I had a Ballast Point their hazy IPA.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the last time I had that was probably back in April or May, whenever we had our Laughlin trip. I think was the
Mm-hmm.
last time that I had one of those. But man, you know what? Yesterday was one of the like shockingly rare this year, 100+ degree days.
Yeah.
Um, and like felt the heat, but the hazy still worked really nice on that, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to like just a pure resin IPA. Some of the citrus and all that kind of stuff really
It is,
kind of
yeah.
helps on a hot day. But yeah, no, it was real good.
I
Nothing
tell
too
you,
exciting.
no, but still, that's a solid one. And I got to be honest, man. Like, I can't. The idea of going back to like a regular West Coast IPA just doesn't even make sense to me anymore. Like
It would have
hazies
to
and
be a pairing situation for me,
it,
honestly.
there's just not the flavor. Like, who just goes in and is like, I just want to chew on tar. Like there's like the hazies
Yeah,
just have so much more a robust flavor profile than the West Coast do. Like there's
yeah, I
they're
agree
like
with that.
hints instead of like competing with the hops.
Yeah, what I would say, I think for me, if I was going to be doing the like a straight up just West Coast IPA, which honestly those are getting harder and harder to find, even if you wanted them
They
anymore.
are. Hmm.
Like because everyone's got 30 different versions of their IPA now, so
Yeah.
good luck finding just the IPA one. But if I was going to be looking for something like that, it's probably I am having like some heavy duty, greasy, cheap food,
Mm-hmm.
where like I just
Mm-hmm.
need something to like, you know, bad pizza. Because I
Yep.
still like bad pizza. Bad pizza is still tasty
Yep.
if it's like fairly fresh out of the
Yep.
oven.
Yeah, it's got its place for sure.
Exactly. And so if I'm doing something like that, though, where it's like, oh, wow, this is like grease and cardboard are largely kind of what's happening here as the dominant undertones. Yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and punch myself in the mouth with some resin and some bitters that, you know, again, for something really greasy, I feel like it would play for me. I don't know that it would play better than a hazy would. I think some of the brightness would probably be nice on that. But my thing is, at that point, I feel like the food's going to be dragging the beer down.
Yeah, it's so specific. Like
it's important to hit it at the same level,
right?
You know?
I always think of Dragoon, that IPA.
Oh yeah.
What was it, Crooked Tooth in Tucson or something? That everybody says, is it Crooked Tooth? I don't know. It's a Tucson brewery.
I think so. Yeah.
But either way, it's like everybody says this is like the best West Coast IPA in Arizona. Like this is the one that the brewers are like, this one is really good. And I had it with pizza and it's awesome. And then I was like, okay, I'll have one of those. And I was like, oh man, nope. Where's the pizza? I need something to compete with this thing, man. It's too much. But a hazy, I can screw with a little bit, you know, like, but just like a straight up West Coast, man. Like I've just gotten to where, you're right. I haven't really thought about it. They're kind of hard to come by nowadays. They now, instead of calling them East Coast IPAs or what was it, New England or whatever, now they're just hazies. And so now everybody is doing them, and it's not a regional thing like it kind of started out with. It's interesting how that trend changed.
It is. And I think part of what it is that, you know, for so long in the craft brew scene, it was like everyone was just doing an IPA. And I would say the consumer's palate in general has just become so it's so easy now to kind of distinguish when there is something other than hops there and when there's not, because we've been having so many of them.
Yeah, it's not novel.
That it's like, you know what? This one trick pony, it's still not bad, but hey, here's one that does that trick and like 3 others.
Right.
And all of them better than this.
Exactly.
So,
and that kind of is a nice segue right into my beers that I had was the New Belgium sampler pack, which I assume was a sampler pack because it was like they kept giving me these random New Belgium beers, and I was like, why do you have so many different versions of a New Belgium? Like, I was like, this had to be a sampler pack because nobody just goes and buys those.
It's either that or you've got 14 cases of different New Belgium in the house, and that just doesn't seem like a move anyone would make.
Didn't make sense. So they had like a Summer Bliss, Tropical Wheats, the Voodoo Ranger 1985 IPA, and the Mountain Time Premium Lager. And so I guess more of just like reviewing the New Belgium thing altogether, because they do Fat Tire, right?
Yep.
That was one of those ones.
Fat Tire was kind of their entryway into like the sort of national consciousness.
Yeah, you know, because like I got Boston Lager and then I had a Fat Tire and I was like, okay, yeah, you know, like it's like one of those early beers that you have and you're like, yeah, these are good. These don't suck. Yeah. But that's kind of as far as I've gotten with New Belgium is that, you know, like these are good, you know, they don't suck, but it's never just like, man, this is so good. In drinking them, I just don't know that I would put them above Sierra Nevada. They're on that large scale craft beer, but like, are they better than Sierra Nevada? I don't know. I think Sierra Nevada does some really good stuff. Sierra Nevada is like my benchmark for like the national beer that's really good.
Sure.
You know, like, because I've had some Sierra Nevada stuff that is really good.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. Like, it was okay. You're not going to go wrong with it. You know, that's the thing. But like, I wasn't wowed. I remember the last time I had Fat Tire, I wasn't wowed. You know, like, I don't know, good, but
it's one of those things. It's kind of a sad experience, though. You know, like, I mean, on the one hand, it's like kind of cool to know that, you know, we're developing our tastes a little bit more and moving on. But like, I had kind of a similar thing a long time ago where I remember when I had first started like drinking beers and having enough kind of leeway in my spending that it didn't have to be, you know, the massive ones. I really liked Newcastle as like a brown ale or whatever. I thought it was great. And that lasted for like a couple of years where it was like, that was my special occasion thing. Like, okay, cool. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to go get a sixer of this. But man, a couple of years later, I went back and got one as like a special occasion thing, picked it up, and it's like, this is just kind of nothing.
Yeah.
And it is. It's one of those things like, on the one hand, okay, so I'm drinking better stuff than I had been before. And so that's good news. At the same time, I wish that I had never figured it out.
Yep.
I wish that I had never
Yep.
gone back to it that time.
Dude, it's the truth. It's like when you're a kid and you remember that thing that was so big and so amazing and then you go back and see it as an adult and you're like, dang it, like now it's ruined because now I see it for what it is. I should have just left my childhood imagination memory of it and never gone back to that place and ruined it.
Or like not go back until you've got little kids with you who can be overwhelmed, and then you can kind of
yes,
be feeding off of
exactly.
that. Like, but
Exactly.
yeah, no, absolutely, man. I've got so many movies that are on that list of, I'm not going to go back and watch them. And it's not because they're horribly inappropriate, although some of them probably are. But for a lot of them, it's more just about, no, I love that movie and I love quoting that movie.
Yeah.
But I remember enough of that movie to be convinced that it's probably not actually great.
Right.
And that, like, if
Yeah.
I watched it now, there would be 3 things that I really laughed at, and the rest would be
Yep.
sitting there like, oh,
Yeah, your suspension of disbelief would be ruined, and then you would start seeing all the all the problems with it.
exactly. I don't want to ruin a good story with the truth.
Yes, which is a nice segue with Tate. That's kind of the truth of that situation. So how familiar are you with him?
I'll be honest, man. Like, I knew literally nothing about him. When I saw that you had posted it as like a pod topic idea, I went on, like,
You went down
doing
the rabbit hole.
a little bit. Like, I
Okay.
kept myself from diving too deep in it because some of it was depressing.
Yeah. It's wacky.
Yeah. Like, and just kind of one of those guys who, like, he might not be a bad person, but from a marketing perspective, he's realized there's a lot of advantage to being one. And there's some evidence that he might be a bad person.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's
a lot of it.
I don't think we can take that out of the equation fully.
No, absolutely.
But yeah, but it would be it's a character that's worth being aware of because of his influence over young men right now, and you being in high school. I'm kind of surprised that the young men haven't brought it, especially since he's dabbling, or not dabbling, but commenting on the religious sphere. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes up, it would be interesting to be prepared for the young men to have.
Sure.
Those
I will say, I think probably demographically, he's not gonna hit with a whole lot of my kids, the ones who I have.
That's fair.
There's not a ton of crossover, but no, so I'm teaching summer school at a different high school this summer, and yeah, you know what? Honestly, the pseudo-political, pseudo-philosophical, pseudo-traditional, there's a lot of pseudos there that are very appealing to certain mindsets, really. Yeah. When young men are trying to figure out who they are, some of the branches off of that, as they're going through that process, some of the things he taps into a lot of them.
Yeah, and there's nobody else doing it. Well, there are other people doing it, but they're not quite as loud as him. There's only a few of them that are actually doing it, and only one that I know of that's doing it well. But he had some interesting comments. I listened to some of it, and I listened to some of so he was just arrested recently for I don't know, whatever it was. They said they had no whatever. He was arrested. He's been released. And in that process, so he was a big atheist, and then he became an Orthodox Christian. And then throughout his being arrested and the process and all of that, he came out of prison as a Muslim, basically. And so now
there was a video that popped up all of a sudden, not long after he had been in an interview talking about the money that he gave to his Orthodox church. Then there was a video of him praying in a mosque.
Yeah. So
which led to questions.
transition just happened.
Yeah.
And, again, like I don't put any stock in these celebrity religious things at all, but his comments, he made some comments because he was doing an interview with the Valuetainment guys who are Christian, or the main guy is Christian. And so he was asking him about that transition, and it was kind of one of the few, it was one of those like painfully justified rationales, in that he was sitting there looking at the Christian church and how it's constantly mocked, and how people are disrespecting it and doing all kinds of terrible symbols of Christ and all of these things. Like, it is just a laughing stock, basically, is, some of his words, but the way that it's ridiculed publicly. And then he was looking at the Muslim world, who they do a much better job. And though I don't know that the way they do it is what I agree with, but they do a better job of maintaining social values, is what he said. Like the orthopraxy, right? Like, they maintain the rules, social rules, and they defend them most of the time violently. But like, they asked him about the people who drew the picture of the prophet Muhammad, right? And they're like, why do they not mock the prophet like they do Christ? And his comment was, they don't, they can't handle the smoke, right? The heat that comes from it. Nobody wants it. And though the reality of it is, yes, nobody wants the response that comes from the Muslim world when you do something like that, because it's not a civil discourse.
Well, and even when it is, but like, even when it is, to kind of his point, even when it's like just like protest and outcry, like, it is widespread, and it is like with one voice, they're crying out for it to stop.
Yeah.
So even, yeah, absolutely. When you get to like the extreme kind of militant parts of it, absolutely, that's entirely accurate as well, that there is a level of fear that goes along with the idea of mocking Islam. But there is also, like, quite frankly, in the capitalist West, you can guarantee that you will lose a not insignificant share of the market completely and totally by doing that. Like, if you are associated with something that puts forward an image of the prophet, whether it's mocking or not, because it is like verboten.
Yeah, they're iconoclastic.
You don't do an image, period. Exactly.
Correct.
And so, like, even if it was a respectful one, it wouldn't be, because you can't respect the prophet and make an image of him. And like, you're not getting that percentage of the population back. There is no, you're done here.
Right.
And with Christianity, there's not that at all.
And that struck a chord with me. Now, we're seeing it more. I feel like we're seeing Christianity get a little bit louder, because like the abortion and transgender stuff has gotten louder, and and Christianity has gotten louder in some of these things too. But just the idea that Christianity is so mocked and disrespected, that, like, why does nobody fear the God of Christianity? Not Christianity, not like, because I want to make that distinction, because they fear mocking the prophet because of Islamic terrorism, right? Like, let's be real. Let's call it what it is.
That's one of them. Not all. That's one of the massive ones, though.
That's one of the massive ones, right? And so, like, let's take it out of that, and it's just like, let's go Old Testament here and be like, why do people not fear the God of Israel? Like, why does everybody look at Christ and be like, I can make fun of this guy? And you're like, two in the Trinity, kind of a big deal. Maybe you shouldn't, like.
Yeah. But again, here's the thing. And this is where like that separation becomes really difficult that you're talking about, because I understand why we would want to separate it, because we're certainly not looking to call for Christian terrorism.
Right.
I mean, it's not a thing that never happens already, and it's certainly not a thing that should be happening at all. But like, so I understand wanting to separate it, but at the same time, the reason people don't do things to mock Islam isn't because of some like profound respect for Allah. It's a fear of his followers and how they'll respond, whether that's a violence or a capital or a PR loss or whatever, like to whichever scale, depending on what their problem is. And I think, that's one part of it. But the other part of it too is that, well, looking at the Old Testament and the prophets and then looking at Jesus, yeah, he signed up for being mocked.
Yeah.
Like that was going to be one of his calling cards.
Yeah.
That's how you would recognize the Son of Man. That's,
yeah. I kind of see that as like almost like a testament to it too, because like, why is he the only one that seems to be picked on by everybody? Like you're looking at it and be like, well, if everybody's pointing at him, an ugly finger at him, be like, friggin' everyone is pointing at him. Like that, isn't that a form of validation? Like, doesn't that seem to edify you a little bit that like,
Yeah, no. Like, I mean, so Christianity is by far the largest religion on the planet. So like there is that. So you would think, well, there's more Christians than there are Muslims. And so if you're worried about this section of the population that's this size, why wouldn't you be more concerned about this section of the population that's so much bigger? But one of the things that happens when things get bigger is that it's a lot harder to maintain unity. And like in the Muslim world, let's not pretend that there's unity there either.
No, but there are certain tenets that, like you said, that are like yes.
Yeah. And they are able to direct their rage a little bit more easily. And I'm kind of stuck on the phrasing there a little bit. That's the only thing I can come up with, because the thing is, it's not like Sunni and Shia come together to work against the common enemy that they have of the Western world. No, but they'll leave each other alone so that they can both go after these ones. There's no cooperation.
Right.
And with Christianity, in part just because of how massive we've gotten and how fractured we've become, there are a lot of things where a lot of Christians from different denominations work together on. No doubt about it. There are those things. But even within the Christian communities, the ones who are, going to ally together on issues of like pro-life stuff in terms of abortion are not the same ones who they'll be working against each other when you start moving from abortion into broader pro-life and into like death penalty stuff or into euthanasia stuff. Or like there's not
darn it, you totally pooped on my good example. I was gonna be like, yeah, but one good example is that like abortion has really started to unify a Christian voice against this, but like you just said though, but it's against this one specific thing.
But that doesn't mean that you're wrong, that it's not branching into other things. It's just that it's a reasonably new process.
And
it's in part because there's been success on that front. Like, look, let's not kid ourselves. The Western world, we're a lot of front runners. Like we are, I mean, look, we're soft. Like the West has been riding high a really long time. And so there is a when we talk about things like in elections, people who vote based on who they think will win rather than based on who they think is the best candidate.
Yeah.
When we're having discussions, like it still becomes about like winning an argument, even when it's just a casual discussion. And if someone makes a good point, for the most part, our reaction isn't, oh, that's good. I need to sit and chew on that. It's, well, this conversation's done, so I'm going to say something to like really just escalate things. I'm going to throw my hand grenade into the middle of the room and then run out. And so like, part of it is just that, like, okay, cool. So we've actually seen some success here after decades of like being told, oh, well, we elected this person who's going to put these people on the Supreme Court bench, and that means this is going to change, and it not happening. And like, not even really there being like incremental steps and successes on a federal level. Like there were state laws that were being passed, and that was encouraging. But like, in terms of anything that was going to hold up under the Supreme Court, like there hadn't been any incremental gains. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we'll strike it. And so now there's this success and this rallying point that's bringing people into it and bringing people together. And so there is some of that, but again, where's the commitment at? And where, like the commitment level, like where is the, and then like, what's the next step? Because that's the other thing is like, as much as I was talking about we're soft from having been riding high for so long, I think a lot of us as Christians have kind of gotten used to being punching bags anyway, such that when we have something go our way, we hadn't really planned on that. Didn't think about that happening. And so we're not really clear on what our next step is.
Yeah.
And so
I feel I think that's right. And I think there's, I don't know, maybe two types of those Christians. And there's the one where it's like, the world is going to hell in a handbasket, just let it burn, type of a thing. And I probably tend to fall into the camp more often than not. And then there's the one that is more of like, well, like use the system, like it's the devil system, I'm just using it type of a thing, like, and so like you kind of get this weird, what's the word I'm trying to think of, like carelessness, like you just don't, like you're kind of aloof to the world, or
aloof is a good way to put it.
I don't know, but like where
there's
you just
a disconnect.
Like, you're disconnected from it and the meaning of these things. And I feel like Christianity is more like that. And that's where you kind of get the watered down or the lukewarm or like all the criticism that the Christian church has received in America for the last, as long as I can remember, is just that like nobody can tell that you're different than the world. Why is that? Why? Like type of a thing. And that's because like Muslims are different. That they're not part of the system. When we say the world, like they're not a part. They have a different authority, and they don't friggin' answer to you at all. You know what I mean? And so like they are separated.
Don't get too strong on
that. No. But
but
if you push them, they'll push back a lot sooner. You know what I mean?
Well, no, I was going to say, I think again, part of it is, back when we were first getting started on this and we were both listening a lot to Catching Foxes. One of the things that they said a lot that still sticks with me, even though it's been a long time since I've checked in on those guys. One of the things they talked about a lot was this like false assumption that a lot of Christians in America have, where we still think about us as living in a Christian country, when realistically we live in a post-Christian society.
Right.
Like there is a lot of kind of going along with your point. For a lot of Christians, there's confusion about like our political system versus our religious beliefs.
That's probably a third one that
in their head. Yeah. In their head, they're tied together. And so even if it's like, even if they're not like fully like, Republican is my religion. Like I'm a Christian, therefore I'm Republican, or I'm Christian, therefore I'm Democrat, because of whichever pet issue they've decided.
Evangelical vote. Yeah.
Right. Whichever
Exactly.
one they've decided that matters to them. And, that's part of living in this country is figuring that out.
Mm-hmm.
But even if they're not like completely and totally identifying their religion with their vote, there is still this like kind of confusion about, oh, well, our system is built on these Christian foundations. It's a
Mm-hmm.
Christian system. And so there's a lot of confidence that they can work through that system. And to a
Fair.
certain extent, that's not wrong. You
Not
can
wrong.
work through the system to an extent, but
Yeah.
like
Fair.
it is still going back to things we've talked about on a lot of the podcasts recently. It's still our system that we're asking God to cooperate with as opposed to the other way around.
Correct. Yeah.
Like if I'm following God, then there will be times where there are things that are provided for in the system that I can use in my following of God.
Right.
That's a very different thing than me telling God, look, God, I know this is a thing that we need to work on. So I need you to tell me which one of these political parties or which one of these politicians or which one of these grassroots movements you're going to use to do this so that I can put my vote there.
Yeah.
Like that's a different thing. That's us telling God to be an American as opposed to us saying I'm God's.
Yeah. I like that. That's an interesting point. And to be honest, like the system is built on the quote unquote Judeo-Christian value. Like all of our everything is built on all of the precepts are built on like the sanctity of life, and all of the concepts of the human value come from Judeo-Christian. So but I mean, so heading into life lessons, I think with me, all of this stuff that's kind of come up and talking about it is really like what you were just alluding to there, was that our identity is with Christ first, and then our actions should support that. So like whether that's voting or that's buying or that's living or it's teaching your kids, whatever like you're going on. One of the examples I think of was this author was like, when they're doing like a pride day at a baseball game, they're like, well, would you do a Christian day at a baseball game? And the person was like, yeah, I would, because that's just something that people identify as. And I was like, hang on, you're confusing Christianity with just a social structure or a social group. Like it's not that, it's different. And we need to act that way. Like I would not advocate, like still Christian, right? Like never advocating violence, but there should be something that shows that we're set apart, right? And that we answer to God first and then authority second, as part of our response to Christ, really.
Yes, absolutely. No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And in the guy who made the comment, yes, I would, because that's to be fair, that's not on him. That's on the person who asked the question. Like by asking that question, you have equated those two.
Yeah.
But you're right. It needs to be different. For me, and this was like kind of my underlying frustration the more and more I looked into Andrew Tate and like what he said and his reasoning behind it and everything. We have a tendency to lose sight of the truth because we get focused on a lot of pragmatic things. Like I think it's really telling that when he was asked about why he left Christianity for Islam, it had nothing to do. Well, his answer didn't say anything about like faith in God or any kind of teachings or anything
or
like
reason
that.
Or
it
anything.
was no, it wasn't about what was true. It was about, honestly, and this ties back into why, like you said earlier, we don't want to dismiss the fact that he's probably also just not a good person based on a lot of the choices he's made. But like he picked Islam because it fits the rest of his brand about being super brash and super unapologetic about like things will be my way because they will be my way. It was nothing about like an internal conversion or some recognition of God that hadn't been there for him in Christianity. It was, oh no, I think Islams do a better job of living a badass lifestyle than Christians do. Well, and to be fair, like it is true, we as Christians, part of our evangelization has to be that like there's something about our lives that is appealing to people.
Right.
But that's not the ultimate root of it.
Yeah.
Like that should be flowing out of our recognition of what's true.
Mm-hmm.
And so like for me as the life lesson, long way to get here, but like for me, the life lesson is like, don't lose sight of truth. Like that's what matters. Like my goal for my beliefs is not that they will make me successful. My goal for my beliefs is that they will be true.
Yeah.
Because if my beliefs are true, then there will be impacts from that.
Yeah.
If my beliefs are based on what I think will make me successful or give me an appropriate image or things like that, then I'm going to find out I've guessed wrong almost every time.
Right.
And we don't have time for me to go through the laundry list, but I do have examples. If anyone would like them, feel free, send us an email, let me know. I'll respond with a few. But yeah, no, like we've got to start off by finding what's true. And then all of our decisions are based on that and that alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I remember I talked to Robbie Lashua, and that was his approach was, I'm going to focus on truth and go where it takes me. If it takes me away from Christianity, then so be it. But guess what? It ended up driving him further down. Like it was more about truth because Christ is the truth. Yeah. I like it. And, you know, when you're seeking truth, it is an exhausting path and you need some coffee to help you get down that road. So we would love to provide that coffee for you. We would love to be your coffee roaster. Hop on the Inkledo shop at inkledo.com. Order a couple bags. We roast it fresh, ship it right to you. And that's how you support these meaningful conversations. Got anything else on your brain there, man?
Not a thing.
Right on, right on. With that, we will say
adieu.